Hi, I'm Nancy Francis, and I am the Grant Review Chair for Impact 100. Chris has taken you through the process of submitting a grant application. I'm going to take you through some best practices for that application and also talk about site visits. I know a lot of folks who are watching this have written many grant applications, and for some folks it's a fairly new process. So I'll just share some best practices that I think will help you as you go about it. The first thing we suggest is start working on the grant application as soon as you get it. Trust me, it's easy to procrastinate, but you're going to need to collect all the required documentation as well as give yourself plenty of time to prepare your answers. So get going as soon as you get it. One of the key elements is the project name. That's actually incredibly important. It needs to clearly and succinctly capture the essence of your project. Basically, people who are reviewing your grant almost start to use that as a handle for your project, and if it's clear, it really helps them remember exactly what your application is all about. As you go through the questions, please be aware that each question has a different objective. It's really trying to get at a different issue, so avoid redundancy in your responses. If you find yourself repeating the same things in each of the questions, go back and reread the questions so you can make sure that you're clearly getting at the objective for that question. Be factual. Make sure that what you're trying to say is very clear. One of the things to really watch out for is to avoid the overuse of the word it. It can be really confusing because sometimes it's not clear what exactly you're referring to. Are you referring to the staff, a client, a member, the building you're talking about? So please refer to the specific noun for clarity. Likewise, be consistent when using terms and vocabulary throughout your proposal. If you're calling it staff, keep calling it staff, or don't switch between staff and associates and administrators. Unless those are very different roles. If you're consistent, then we'll know when you are trying to say the same thing and when you're referring to something different. Mark Twain very famously wrote, I didn't have time to write a short letter, so I wrote a long one instead. And he's really getting at the fact that it can be very challenging to write succinctly. And we need each answer to be succinct and informative. Therefore, use shorter sentences. Use simple words. It just makes it a lot easier to read. Also, avoid throwing in extra words like the and very and much. Much better, very interesting. Just cut those words out. They're filler words, and it makes it easier to read without them. As you're writing, use the active voice, not a passive voice. It's a lot shorter. It makes it stronger. For example, I love my dogs is a lot easier to read and is a lot clearer than my dogs are loved by me. So really, again, strive to use the active voice whenever you can. Don't bury the lead when you're writing. Make sure that the reader doesn't have to work hard to understand your point. Therefore, put the crucial information at the beginning. So that's the information that they must have for your communication to be successful. Then you can have additional information that's helpful but not crucial. And if you happen to have room, you can have be nice if they had it, but maybe you just don't have that at all. So again, don't bury the lead. After you've written it, put it aside. Just leave it, come back to it again with fresh eyes and a fresh mind. Then edit it, keeping in mind the tips I shared earlier. We also suggest having at least one other person read it because they really are going to bring those fresh eyes to it and spot things that you miss. A critical element of your application is the budget. So the budget, it's important that it's very well planned and that all the documentation is right there and accessible and clearly labeled so that when the grant committee members are reading the application, they really understand your budget and know that they've got all the appropriate documentation they are looking for. One thing to keep in mind is that committee members may be reading a lot of applications. So it might be 12 o'clock at night by the time they get to your application. You might be the 12th applicant, so just make sure that you're making it as easy for them as possible. The next topic I'd like to cover are the site visits. which are an incredibly important part of our process. So, as I mentioned, or actually I guess as Chris mentioned earlier, each grant is going to be assigned to one of our 5 focus areas. So arts and culture, education, environment, recreation and preservation, family, or health and wellness. Impact 100 has a committee, a grant review committee for that particular area. That committee is responsible for evaluating all of the grant applications in that area and for recommending the top 2 finalists to the Impact 100 Board of Directors. So they're going to read everything as all of the grant applications in that area, and they're also going to make a site visit to all of the applicants in that area. The site visit is an incredibly important opportunity for the committee members to meet you and your and other folks on your staff, to learn more about your organization and your specific grant proposal, as well as have the opportunity to ask you questions. So with that, let's talk a little bit about the site visits. So some best practices for the site visits. We want you to be aware that all of the site visits will be virtual this year, so be prepared for that. The area review chair for your committee will reach out to you, to the key contact in your grant application, to schedule that site visit. We recommend if you can give a virtual tour. It really helps of your space. It really helps the committee members visualize and remember your grant. We do recommend filming those tours in advance. That will help to avoid technical glitches. You'll know you've already got it in the can, basically, so you just need to hit play and share it with them. The site visits will take about 60 minutes. Again, the area chair review will make this very clear to you. We do want you to save about 15 minutes for questions within that 60 minutes. And please know that the committee will likely submit some of their questions to you in advance. So again, site visits are a critical part of the process and really great opportunity for the committee to get to know you. With that, we look forward to reading your applications. Thanks so much.